We've had a lot to do with the media today. Well, it's unsurprising, really. I thought Craig's reference to that statement of intent from Television New Zealand was fascinating. An acceptance that, based, I guess, on their own independent research, that they are a good part of their own problem. It's not just their business model, but the way in which their model, in actual fact, of news gathering and news distribution works for them. But I don't think for a moment that journalists would accept that. That might be the view of Television New Zealand's management, and yeah, obviously is, otherwise they wouldn't have put in their statement of intent. But I don't know that your average journalist necessarily accepts that they are part of the problem, or that their news gathering and news reporting so-called skills are that issue. Can I just, as an exhibit on that, just take Petra Bagust. You remember Petra Bagust? I think she did. They interviewed her yesterday on Television 3 News, ironically with Barry Soper as her offsider. And when she was asked about why is the public trust of the media declining, Petra Bagust gave this explanation, and I would suggest to you that this explanation from Petra Bagust would be symptomatic of, or illustrative of the prevailing sentiment amongst journalism in this country. But let's just see what she said. Petra Bagust, trying to explain why the plummeting trust ratios of New Zealanders to the New Zealand news media in this country, said this: New Zealand had been through a very difficult period with the COVID-19 pandemic, which had put a lot of pressure on people. They suffered, she said, with the illness. They suffered with isolation. They suffered through the restrictions and lockdowns. I think it's a human thing to want to push that pain out. And so an easy target for that pain could be journalists who are reporting things that you don't want to hear, who are saying things you don't want to partake of. So I think journalists have become an easy target in that sense. Now, there's no self-awareness there. Oh, God. There's no introspection there. There's not a brain neuron functioning there. Mind you, that was always Petra Bagust. There is simply a denial that the problem has anything to do with them. And it's the old story. It's not their fault. It's your fault. And you know, when journalists don't understand in this country that they are the product, or that the trust in them as individuals and them as news entities, when the trust of them is plummeting to the degree that it is, and they don't understand that they are the problem, you just have confirmed for you, don't you, that they will never, ever, ever regain our trust. And that the wrong people are in journalism in this country. And I want to repeat that. The wrong people are in journalism in this country. And not just are they the wrong people in journalism in this country, but they have the wrong trainers as well in our polytechnics and our universities, who are also left-wing by nature, biased and partial by inclination, and quite prepared to impart their unorthodox and, you'd have to say, non-mainstream and extraordinarily left-wing views to a new realm of journalists. Now, in our conversation that we've just had, and I urge people, please, to go to this and listen to this conversation with the Newspaper Publishers Association director, Andrew Holden. And listen, Andrew, can I give him credit, A, for coming on, and B, for the honesty in which he answered questions. But if you listen to our conversation to that, and I urge you to go and listen to that interview, Andrew made the point And I thought, when asked by me as to whether or not, or why, there were so many left-wingers in the media in this country, so many people who personally identified themselves as having politics and partiality well to the left of centre, he said, well, that's not surprising, isn't it? You remember that? He said, those are the kind of people that will go into journalism, left-wingers, because they're used to challenging authority. So it's people who go into journalism who want to challenge authority. You would have heard the response. And he said, conservative people don't usually want to challenge authority. Although I dispute that, certainly over the last 6 years, which is probably why we got the election result, when a whole series of conservative people were joined by a whole lot of middle people in getting rid of this government in record numbers last October. But put that to one side. And I would also deeply now challenge the concept that conservatives are unthinking or are not interested in research, when I think that a good deal of the conservative media at the moment are directly challenging, including the platform, if you like, the liberal orthodoxy of the state and of the prevailing cultural sentiments throughout the Western world. So it's not just, in New Zealand, but Canada, the United States, Australia, UK, Europe as well. So, so obviously I wouldn't accept that thesis, but it doesn't matter. Put it to one side. Now, so there's an acceptance or an awareness, and that's the key issue here, that the media in our country are biased, left-wing, partial, that they are recruited from that group within society, trained by that group within society, and placed into positions where they can exhibit that bias to society. And then they ask, just like Petra Bagast, then they ask, it can't be us that's the problem. It must be everybody else, including you.